Someday, I want to take over the world.
Lizzie, you need to know your place in the world. I should have had a boy.
That's preposterous. I'm smarter than all the boys in my class.
Lord help me. In July of 1848, Elizabeth Cady Stanton gave the keynote address at the Seneca Falls Women's Rights Convention. This was the opening shot of the women's rights movement. In her speech, she demanded freedom and political representation for women, including the right to own property and the right to vote. It was delivered on the first day of the first Women's Rights Convention meeting in Seneca Falls, New York. The next day, 68 women and 32 men signed Stanton's Declaration of Sentiments, which called for equality with men before the law, in education and in employment. The following is an excerpt from that famous speech.
But we are assembled to protest against a form of government existing without the consent of the governed, to declare our right to be free as man is free, to be represented in the government which we are taxed to support, to have such as disgraceful laws as give man the power to chastise and imprison his wife, to take the wages which she earns, the property which she inherits, and, in case of separation, the children of her love. Laws which make her the mere dependent on his bounty. It is to protest against such unjust laws as these that we are assembled today, and to have them, if possible, forever erased from our statute books, deeming them a shame and a disgrace to a Christian republic in the 19th century. We have met to uplift women's fallen divinity upon an even pedestal with man's. And, strange as it may seem to many, we now demand our right to vote according to the declaration of the government under which we live.
In 1851, Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Stanton met for the first time at a street corner in Seneca Falls, New York. Before long, they came to realize they needed each other. There was extensive correspondence back and forth and visits to each other's houses. As the leaders of this movement, they often needed to lean on one another for motivation and support in these trying times.
Mrs. Stanton, I have very weak moments, and I feel alone. Don't fail to write me. It always does me so much good to get a letter from you.
You are not alone on this battlefield.
Elizabeth Cady Stanton wrote many speeches for Susan B. Anthony. Susan would often come to Seneca Falls to help take care of the children, while Elizabeth wrote speeches for her. Though Elizabeth was passionate and determined to make a difference in the women's suffrage movement, her obligations at home took up much more of her time. Susan had no domestic duties of her own, and she often prodded Elizabeth to take on more work and attend more meetings, to step to more of the forefront of her movement. Elizabeth, frustrated by the limitations of her life, would occasionally let off steam in her letters.
Men and angels, give me patience. I am at the boiling point. How much I long to be free of housekeeping and children so as to have time to think and read and write.
Have you simply given yourself over to baby making and left poor brainless me to battle alone?
Your servant is not dead, but liveth.
In 1857, Elizabeth tried to encourage Susan.
You and I have a prospect of a good long life. We shall not be in our prime before 50, and after that we shall be good for 20 years at least.
She tried to encourage Susan by promising only 2 to 3 more years of raising her children until the two of them would be in the battlefield together. But alas, Elizabeth soon found out that she was expecting a 7th baby. Susan's response when she found out was less than enthusiastic.
Ah, me. Alas. Alas, Mrs. Stanton. Your husband, you know, does not help to make it easy for her to engage in such work. And all of her friends throw mountains in her path. Mr. Stanton will be gone for most of the autumn, full of political air castles. The whole burden of home and children, therefore, falls to her. But there's no remedy now.
Their friendship withstood the setback of a 7th child, but Susan B. Anthony still had more time than Elizabeth Cady Stanton to be a public face for the movement. In Rochester, New York, on November 5th, 1872, Susan B. Anthony was arrested for voting illegally. Finally, on August 18, 1920, the 19th Amendment was ratified. The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex.